Hey everyone, in today's episode we're going to be teaching you how to use your own character for the dismemberment kit. So first what we need to do is head on over to Blender, and what you're going to want to do is import your character. So you're going to make sure that the skeleton comes with it and the mesh. So what we need to do is we want the whole leg left and right, the whole arm right and left, and the head to be dismemberable, but we also want the calf, the thigh, the left thigh, left calf, left forearm, right upper shoulder, left upper shoulder to be dismemberable as well. So what we can do is simply select all of this and P, and then what you're going to want to do is, let's just hide the rest of him. We want to just unlink the rest of the body from the skeletal mesh, from the skeleton, sorry. So clear and keep transformation. So we're going to delete this, and then what should happen is it should be just the skeleton and the leg. So what we're going to do is set the origin to geometry, and then let's move this so that it's somewhere in the middle. And then what you can do is you just select both of these, then export as FBX, and then you can name this whatever you want. So we'll call this left calf, and then you just export that with selected objects, armature, mesh, and then disable add leaf bones. You can leave this as default, uncheck bake animations, and then you just export it. So then you can do this for the head also. So let me just Control Z back to the one mesh. So then if you were to do, let's say the head, select the whole head. Yep. Let's select everything inside the head. Okay. And then we want to unlink the rest of the body. So select both of them, making sure that the the armature is orange and the actual rest of the body is selected yellow. Then parent, clear and keep transformation, and then just get rid of him. Then object, set origin to geometry, and then what you're just going to want to do is move the skeleton to somewhere in the middle, and then just go ahead and export that using the same process. So you do this for every single mesh that you want to dismember. So then what you should have is in Unreal, let's say we go to our limbs, you are going to import this mesh like so. So let me import, let's say for example this was the whole arm I want to import. So what you're going to want to do is import it to your original character, your full body character skeleton. So that way all the meshes that are dismemberable, so all the dismemberment meshes all use one skeleton, and that makes it much easier and makes your project a lot lighter. So I don't want to import that. So once you've done that, what you're going to want to do is head on over to your physics assets for each of these, and what we're going to do is, once it loads, okay, now that it's loaded, firstly you can see the offset from the root that we've added. So you should see a red line which shows there is an offset between the actual original position and the root, and that's what we did in Blender where we moved the whole skeleton to be in the center. So what you're going to have is automatically generated capsules. So these are your physics bodies. So you select all of them, and we have simulation generates hit overlaps. What this basically means, if it collides with something in the world, in the game, it should call a hit event. And the reason we want this is because in our dismemberment blueprint, we have set up a system where if the dismembered mesh hits something, it plays a flesh impact sound. So if you don't have this enabled, it's not going to play the flesh impact sound once it hits something in the world. So we basically turn this on to let it know that it should generate these hit overlaps. And then we also just give it a flesh material, that way once we shoot this in the game, it plays a blood effect. You don't have to do that. And you just do the same thing for every single one you've got. So the next step is, if you go to your original skeleton, since all the dismembered meshes contain the same skeleton as our original character, what we need to do is create sockets. So if you don't already have these, let me show you why we need these. So you should be able to see all your preview meshes because they all share the same skeleton, so you can just interchange whatever you want. So if you look here, I have created upper arm L Gib, and it should contain this exact same name. And then you just go to your upper arm socket, so it's this one, and you just right click, add socket, and then you call it exactly this. And then what you want to do is add preview asset, and then you get the bone, SM bone, and then you scale and position it to fit however you want it to look, the bone that sticks out. And then you do the same thing for every single one. So then the next one you do is the lower arm L, you right click, add socket, and then you call it upper arm lower underscore L underscore Gib. Do the same thing, you right click on the socket you just made, add preview asset, select SM bone or whatever mesh you want, and then you scale and adjust it so that it looks good. So once you wanna do the just a single arm, so you just select this, and then you can clearly see much easier. And then you do the same thing for the upper arm R. On the opposite side, you do the upper arm lower R Gib, and then you also select the correct mesh for this as well. There you go. So then you do the same for the thigh. You right click, thigh L Gib, and then calf L Gib on your calf bone. And this is just all visual. You can just adjust this however you want. You may not even want any of this. So once you've done that, what we need to do is swap out our meshes. So you go over to the BP dismembered limb, and in here simply you have your spawn full limbs and spawn single limbs. So your full limbs are the let's check it out real quick. So your full limbs are things like your arm L, arm R, your leg L, leg R, your head, and the single limbs are the individual ones: the lower arm, the calf, the thigh bones, the thigh meshes, the upper arms. So if you want to update the full limbs, we have this macro, and all you have to do is just swap out your new mesh with the one that you've selected for your custom one. So you swap out the new mesh for the arm R, new mesh for the arm L. So you change this to your own one, and you do this for every single one, and you make sure they match up. And then for the single limbs, you do the exact same. And if you want, you can swap out these naming conventions for your own. And you don't have to worry about this, because this just basically means should we spawn these meat giblets on both sides, and the reason you'd want them on both sides are for things like your upper arms, your thighs. So the single thigh there is going to be a mesh that spawns here and up here. So I've already preset those to be on for those ones. All you have to do is just swap out what you need. So the last thing is, by default this will work. The only thing you need to do is, if you want to get it set up in a new fresh project, is how to add this component to your own custom character. So simply all you have to do is let's just create a new blueprint. Let's make it a character. So we'll call this BP dummy test 2. So simply let's compare him to our dummy. Our dummy, you don't need to worry about this. This is just if you want to get grenades to dismember your character. So all you need to do is just add the component, dismemberment component. So let's add dismemberment, and by default it's replicated. These are all the bone names that are preset. So you have your bone health and your breakable bones. So you have to match these indexes. So index 0, 10 health, which means upper armor has 10 health. Index 1, that's got 10 health. Index 2, that has 6 points. And you just add whatever breakable bones you want, and you just set their health values. But we're just going to leave it as default, and you don't need to worry about these two. So all you need to do is, let's just add our mesh real quick. AVP dummy, give him the mannequin, drop him down, rotate. By default this will work instantly, so let's just give it a test. It should work instantly. Let's play from here. Okay, what we need to do is actually check if collisions are enabled on our character. Okay, so let's just set that to custom, and we need to make sure it blocks visibility because our line trace, our hit scan actually uses the visibility trace. So let's try again. There we go, and that's working perfectly fine. Okay, yeah, that's working perfectly fine. So the next step is, if you wanted, let's say you want a grenade to dismember the zombie. So firstly, if you want it to be working in multiplayer, you can follow along. Multiplayer and single player both work. So what you need to do is, you need to add your event radial damage. So you should already have your grenade set up. If you don't have a grenade set up, you can just follow and copy the projects. I already have a grenade example in the project. So we're going to create this event that runs on the server, and we're going to have a random integer in range that switches on int. So that basically means it's going to pick either one, and we want to just get our hit. So just create a new pin input and get hit result, and another input pin actor, and then just plug these into here. So basically this means just get the information of what we hit. So we want to get the location of what we hit and the actor that we hit. So then all you have to do is just drag your component dismemberment and get our preset that I've made. So there's explosive strong and explosive medium. So you can just have it randomly pick to dismember them with a violent explosion or a violent or a medium explosion. So I've just created a blueprint library that basically dismembers the bones, and all you need to do is just plug these in and it should work by default. So now that's setting up the characters and getting the dismemberment to work, but how do you actually call the dismemberment to work on your guns or your grenades or your line traces? So this is quite simple. So if you look in the first person character example, what I have is a simple line trace. That just works off the server. So we just line trace by channel. And first what we do is on the hit actor, let's just make sure the actor we hit is valid. So then we want to check if the hit actor contains the component dismemberment. So we want to make sure that he has the dismemberment class, because if he doesn't, we don't want to call anything related to dismemberment. And we want to check if that component is valid in the world. Once we've done that, from our return value, call any damage and make sure you plug the return value into target. So here you can set how much damage you want to do to the bones, and then we want to also know what bone we hit, so plug that into hit bone name, and then we want to calculate the impulse, so how much should we impulse the bones. So I've made a little macro. So from self, get the first person camera or whatever your camera is called, get its forward vector, and then we just want to multiply that by a value. So this is just going to be how strong our impulse is. Then just plug that into there, and then we need to know the location of what we hit. And once you've done that, it should just work plug and play. And the rest of this code and logic is just for impacts and decals. You don't need to worry about that. You can have a look at it if you want. You can copy it and use it in your project, but there's no need to get it working. So once you've done that, that is how you should get the component working. If you have any problems, just let me know in the Discord. The last thing I would like to show you is how the grenade works. So, quite simply, all I have is a timer. We call explosion. We apply radial damage, but the real logic of how to get the So that's all for getting the dismemberment system. If you have any problems or questions regarding this component, please let me know in the Discord server I've linked below, or it's on the Epic Games Marketplace page for the dismemberment component. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.